Welcome, everybody. My name is Trey Farley. I'm here with Mike Farley, and this is the Poolside Perspective Podcast. And we have the last podcast of 2024. We're about to be into 2025, so exciting times. A lot of new things happening, probably for a lot of people, making goals and setting expectations for themselves and new lifestyles they want to endure. So, but we have a real fun one for y'all for today.
Actually, it's boring.
It's not boring. It's very important. It's actually,
it's very
depends on the person, I guess, the viewer.
Very important, but this is somewhat of a boring, not exciting subject matter. But yes, it's exciting.
Yeah.
It's exciting to be at the end of the year,
Yes.
and look back and see all of the things that have happened. We talked about doing a highlights of 2024 on Poolside Perspectives, and we figured, that would be too boring to highlight. So just listen to all the episodes. Just go back and listen to them. But we've had some really cool guests.
We have.
And we've talked about some really cool things, products. And we've been able to, investigate a lot of things in kind of the luxury outdoor living atmosphere. And we've got a whole bunch of stuff that's coming up in 2025 that we've already got scheduled. So, I mean, we're talking to Canadian designers, and we're talking health and wellness, and we're also talking about a lot of outdoor living. One of the top deck companies in the country are all going to be on episodes coming up shortly. So, but today I wanted to talk about the plan. So everybody comes up with a design that they like.
Yeah.
Once you have the design that you like, how do you get that design installed in your backyard? And, how did you get to that process in the beginning? So, we're going to kind of talk about some different ways that can occur.
Yeah. It's always good to have a plan. And, you might think it's pricey to bid off of a plan, but it's even pricier to bid off a plan that's vague, once those change orders start rolling in. And that's a whole topic we'll be covering. But
yeah, so way back earlier in the year, we had one of the people that we had on the show was Jason Brownlee.
Yes.
And Jason Brownlee is a landscape architect and outdoor living specialist and pool designer. And what Jason does is he works with people and develops plans.
Mm-hmm.
And Jason does not build anything.
Okay.
So he designs there's two levels of plans that he does. So his first is what's called conceptual plans.
Yeah.
He's going to come up with the concept of what the yard is going to look like. There's a 2-dimensional drawing.
Mm-hmm.
There's a 3-dimensional model that goes with that. And then there's some general specifications that go along with that. So that's a conceptual set of drawings.
Yeah.
Okay. So now we have the concept of what the project's going to look like. We created the idea. We created the space that we're going to have. But that doesn't explain to us how to build it.
No, not at all.
Okay. And so Jason then flips the sheet over and does working drawings.
Yeah.
Okay. So working drawings are going to be very detailed drawings, basically cutting the project up into all kinds of sections, like you're cutting a piece of cake through all the different layers of this project that then explain all the different layers and how all those layers go together and what those layers are made out of. And there's working drawings that go into structural, they go into hydraulics, they go into material selection, they go into everything that's going to be incorporated in the project. Engineering, he's not an engineer, so he then works in tandem with an engineer to have engineering done on the things that needs to be done. So, and along with that, develops a full set of specifications on the materials as well. Now, those working drawings are a biddable document.
Yeah.
So everybody then can take that and to different pool builders, outdoor living specialists, landscape companies to do their cost analysis of the project. So that is one way to go through the process. You're going to pay design fees for the conceptual plan.
Yeah.
You'll pay design fees for the working drawings. And then you're going to, in some cases, I know that some designers then will also act as a supervisor of work, and you pay a fee for that as well.
Yeah.
So that's one concept that you're going to go through. Usually you find a designer that you really like and realize that they can come up with what you're going to look for.
And this is not like super common because there's a lot of pool companies out there, and this is not like happening at majority of the pool companies.
Oh, no. I mean, there's a handful of people that design like this in the United States.
High quality. This is a high quality
this is a luxury
idea.
Outdoor living and pool development process.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's one process that you can go through.
Okay.
So the advantage of that process is everything's pretty much thought through in a very detailed process. So the word, like you said, change order doesn't really come up that much.
No.
Because you should understand very clearly in the conceptual phase what's going to take place. And then the working drawings dovetail right into that conceptual phase as well. So now what happens sometimes is as people go through projects, they add things.
Yeah. Or they don't like the color, want it to get set or whatever it is, right?
And so there are changes that do occur.
But it's not on their end. It's not on Jason's end. It's not like, oh, we forgot to put this in here. Let's change this up real quick.
Right. So that's one process. I work a little bit differently.
Yes, you do.
Okay. So the process that I go through is I do conceptual plans just like Jason does.
Yep.
Okay. We do a 2-dimensional drawing. We do a 3-dimensional model. We write up some general specifications for it to generate a general budget to make sure that people are in the right vein before we start going on. So at that point, the people own the plans. They can take those plans and shop those plans because the set of specifications that go with it are very thorough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so between those two things, they could get bids from contractors, but there's no working drawings with this.
No.
You have to have the working drawings to get it built and permitted.
Mm-hmm.
So that goes to the responsibility of the pool builder that gets the job.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the danger of that is you've got to make sure that they're all bidding this set of specifications.
Yes.
Because like I had a client not too long ago that got a set of drawings from me,
Mm-hmm.
and he went and got 2 bids. And he said, these bids are over $100,000 in difference.
Yeah. But are the specifications the same?
Well, no, he didn't choose to give the set of specifications to them. He just gave them the drawings.
Oh.
So the problem is then they get to pick how they're going to build it.
Yeah.
And they're not following the set of specifications that was developed. And so that was why there was so many big differences between the two.
That's when you see those one-page contracts as well. That pops up often.
Right. Well, this was a one-page type situation. So
Oof.
he then took and gave it to another company.
Okay.
Did the same thing.
Yeah.
It was closer, but it was the same thing. They weren't bidding the same product.
Yeah.
So
and he's coming back to you, showing you what they're trying to sell.
Right. He's showing me the set of specifications they wrote up, their standard set of specifications for this project, which was a very complex project. And so there was some very important details in that. But there was also, when we write a set of specifications, it's based on what the client chooses to do from a hydraulic standpoint, from a equipment maintenance standpoint, from a water quality standpoint. So all those things are picked based on what they're trying to achieve. And, you know, if there's no specifications to go with the drawing, then the pool company can come in and
Do whatever they want.
Do whatever they want.
Use whatever size piping, however long plumbing runs, all that kind of stuff.
Well,
Drainage could be different.
Almost everything can be different.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Structural.
This is a set of specifications that I did on this little bitty project. I mean, this yard's no more than a 40 by 40.
Yeah.
It's 18 pages of specs.
Mm.
Okay. It's small print. So it's very detailed about what's going to take place. And if everybody takes the specs and the drawing, then they should be pretty much apples for apples.
Well, the builder you use is very high end, and they do a lot of jobs. So the price you would assume would be a little lower just because they get a better deal.
Because of volume.
Exactly.
So yes, it's one thing that, a lot of times people ask me, how come you're not a pool builder?
Yeah.
And the reason why is if I was a pool builder, I'd only be building probably 20 projects a year.
Yeah.
That gives me no economy of scale.
Mm-mm.
So I'm going to be paying top dollar for all my everything.
Yeah.
Okay. So to put the same product in the ground versus someone that has the economy of scale, if we're doing the same thing, they're going to beat me every time.
Yeah.
So I chose a long time ago not to become a pool builder because of that.
And your favorite part's being creative.
Well, yeah, there's that too.
Yeah.
So that's important to me.
Yeah. So you rather, make more creative jobs and
So that's another process. Now, to go through that process of conceptual drawings, 2D model, set of specifications, I charge a fee.
Yes.
Okay, because there's a lot of time and work involved in that.
Yes.
So,
and there's even more fees to get the hydraulics and the working drawings and all that kind of engineering to get everything set for plans for it to be ready for the city.
Right. So the company that I work with, Claffey Pools, that does most of my construction, they develop that set of plans.
Yeah.
Which on that 18-page set of specifications, we've now got, I didn't count them. I should have probably counted them. This is probably over 25 pages of working drawings.
Yeah. 9 by 16 or 17.
11 by 17.
11 by 17, yeah.
Yeah. So this goes into everything from a site plans to dimensions for the layout drawings to the pier layout on the project to cross sections in all the different spa, pool, all the walls, water features. I mean, everything is sectioned out. The equipment pad is laid out to the inch and exactly how it's going together. So the hydraulics is all laid out exactly. The N4 cleaning system is laid out exactly in detail. The shade structure is laid out exactly. The outdoor kitchen is laid out exactly. And the material sheet takeoff is all pretty much laid out. Now, so what a lot of companies get is this is where they start. Okay, so that's one process. So I do conceptual drawings, specifications, then they contract the builder who I work with is Claffey Pools, does the working drawings for them. Okay. The third option is some people say, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to call a pool company.
Okay.
Now I'm going to have somebody come out
and
that person's going to come out and they're going to draw something up for me.
Yeah.
And a lot of them don't charge to do this.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay. So their thought process is, well, we want the opportunity to work with people and show them what our capabilities are. And so we're not going to include a design fee. There's going to be construction and design fees embedded in the construction price to cover the work that's done for that. But what you're going to end up with a lot of times then is just a picture of a three-dimensional model.
Yeah.
Now, first of all, there's an issue of intellectual property.
Okay.
So intellectual property is who came up with the idea.
Yes.
Whoever came up with the idea owns the idea.
Okay.
Now, I've had some homeowners explain to me that they came up with the idea.
Oh, yes. Yeah, when people describe in their head what they want and then you put it all together like a puzzle, they give you the pieces because that's what their desire, and then you put it together as a puzzle. But then it's like, oh yes, this is exactly what I thought of, and it's like, well, you wanted it, but you didn't think of this idea. You didn't draw it up.
But it's in their head. So sometimes they're saying, well, the intellectual property was mine.
Yeah.
I'm the one that created this thought process, and I told it to you, and then you put it on paper.
Yeah. I would like this. There's a scenario that I can point to. It's funny. I've been experimenting with AI, like images, and if you want to make something, you give it a bunch of different things, and it'll generate something that what you kind of wanted it to make, but it's not. You didn't exactly picture it how it turned out it's going to be, right? I think it's the same way. You don't. If you envisioned it that well, you would have been able to draw it down, I think.
Yeah. So, but intellectual property is whoever created the idea, therefore owns it.
Yeah.
Okay. So what happens is if you create something, say I create a 3-dimensional model and I show it to a homeowner,
Mm-hmm.
the homeowner doesn't own that.
No.
So it's my property.
Yeah.
Okay. I can share it with you. And there's a lot of companies that will freely give you their drawings.
Yes.
Now, generally, my feeling is the ones that freely give you everything, it's basically what it's worth. It's free,
Yeah.
and it's not worth a whole lot because usually they just take what you said
Mm-hmm.
and give it back to you exactly as that.
Yeah.
You know, versus if someone's using creativity to come up with an unusual or unique concept, is they're going to take what you said, but then they're going to probably put a spin on it to make you think about, okay, here's a different process or thought, or here's how all can go together. And versus we've talked on the podcast earlier about order takers.
Yes.
You know, an order taker is just going to give you exactly what you asked for, nothing more, nothing less, versus a designer is going to make you think about how to take what your thought was and even make it a better solution.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, tweak and modify things, something that not exactly what you described, but conceptually was in the vein of what you were trying to achieve. So if you take this 3-dimensional drawing and then they share it with you, and now you, the homeowner, share it with somebody else, well, first of all, that wasn't your property.
Yeah.
But second of all, there's no way in the world people are going to be pricing out the same product.
No.
I mean, it's going to be different.
Yeah. We've had this multiple times because I've cross-referenced different contracts where they try to bid against it because you sell the design and the everything. But there's so many different ways people bid. Like there's one-page contracts. There's 2-page contracts. There's a lot of vagueness in a lot of different areas. So there's like, I would say, because some things you don't know until you start actually doing the construction. And that might be the only thing that should be vague, I guess, because you can tie like an hourly payment to that. But
like rock.
Yeah, like rock. Yeah, that makes sense. Because unless you do a soil sample, but then you would have to do, I mean, it's so inconsistent. It's all over the place. You wouldn't be able to dial it in without even.
Well, if you did a core sample to see what the level of the clay turns into rock, yeah, you could probably give someone an accurate number of how many rock hours they're going to have. I mean, much closer, or give them at least you know, I put 8 hours or 16 hours of budget. You know, like we did have that one project last year that we got the soils report back, and it said that it was quite a bit of rock. And so it was that big lazy river.
Yeah.
So we had a week of rock hammer in on the job. That was in our bid. The other company didn't put any rock hammer time in at all.
Yeah.
Well, it ended up happening. They didn't hit much rock. So there wasn't a lot of charge. We would have been refunding that money.
Yeah.
Because it was in our bid. We were trying to be as accurate as possible. But we don't want a disaster when we're done.
Sure.
How do we go about doing that? And I'm not talking about the meat, actually. I'm talking about the cleaning aspect. That's not my favorite. So is there any tips for that?
The tips are beforehand, before you start the grill up. There's, a couple of things you want to look at. Get it hot, brush it down really good, keep it well oiled. That will really minimize the disaster or the cleanup that you have afterwards. But to prepare for that, remember all your drip trays down below, regardless if they're multiple level drip trays or not, they should be lined with a foil. So if they're lined with a foil, maybe a heavy gauge, shiny side down. So any of the marinades or fats that drip off of there won't congeal into the pan. You can change it when it's dirty enough for you, but it will eliminate a lot of the grease fires that we have inside of this.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Yep, you bet.
So if you get a conceptual drawing, or a 3D picture, and then you have no set of specifications and you're trying to shop that, you're going to end up all over the place. Even though it's the same concept, they're going to end up with different qualities of product.
Yeah.
They're going to end up with different and the place this is really crazy in is in the outdoor
Structural.
kitchen.
Oh, okay.
Structures too.
Yeah.
But in the outdoor kitchen, you could have people spend as much on a grill as another company might spend on all the appliances put together. Because there's grills that are $8,000.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's a grill over here that's $2,000. They're the same size.
Yeah.
That's like saying, well, these two cars are the same size, so they should be the same price.
Yeah.
One's a Lincoln and the other's a Lamborghini. Okay. They both start with an L. I mean, so therefore they must be about the same cost, right?
Not at all.
So, it's just, you can end up all over the place with where the numbers are going to be. The other thing where people don't realize and they end up with a great deal of difference is the stuff that's underground.
Yes.
That
you don't see.
That you don't see. And you're like, well, it all must be the same. I mean, the difference in price between a well laid out hydraulic swimming pool versus a very poorly one is thousands and thousands, probably tens of thousands of dollars on some projects.
That's the most important part, the underground parts, like the structural, like what's the shell made of, how much rebar do you have in there. There's a lot of places where people can cut corners and that's going to bite them in the butt. So in the front end, it might look good. And that all comes to pretty much the difference between different builders, right? Some builders might want more play on the safe side on everything, and people might be more willing to cut a little bit of price here and there. Maybe they shouldn't, but that's for them to decide. I think it's interesting because I know a lot of the PMs that you work with, and the plans they use, it's like building Legos. It tells them, it shows them exactly what they need to do. And there's been PMs that I was friends with that went to different companies, and they're like, wow, this is completely different. It's so vague. We get a couple sheets of how it's supposed to be built, and it's just really up to you to figure out the staging and the process, and you get to guide the subs exactly, and it's a lot more freedom, but there's a lot more room to mess up.
Well, the challenge is, what are you as a homeowner expecting? And if it's not written down,
yeah,
and it's not drawn on the plans, it's not happening.
No.
So, I mean, that is, and later on, what's kind of sad to me is most of the time they blame the superintendent that he's doing a crummy job.
Yeah.
Well, he's doing as good as he can with the tools that he has.
Yeah.
Okay. Really who usually does the crummy job is the salesperson. Because he didn't clearly explain in documentation, the written documentation and the drawing documentation about what was expected. And the homeowner doesn't understand any of this. And so they sign off on, okay, I got my 3-dimensional drawing. That looks pretty. This is what we want. They sign off on all the rest of the stuff without even understanding what they're looking at.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for people to understand and look at a set of drawings and understand it all.
Mhm.
I mean, I understand, but I guess volume will give you some point of reference. If you mentioned one page drawings and 2-page drawings versus, a set that's 25 pages. Well, obviously there's more likelihood that what's going to be built correctly is in the 25-page one versus the 2-page one.
Yeah.
So plans are important.
Yeah.
So along with plans too, you've got a set of specifications, but you also have material selections. So materials and understanding exactly what you're getting there is real important as well. And a lot of these projects have so many layers of materials now. It's not like when I started, we picked a coping, we picked an interior finish, we picked a tile, we picked the deck, we were done. 4 things to pick out.
Yeah.
On this particular little bitty job, there's, a 11 by 14, 8.5 by 14 sheet of paper filled out with specifications of what was supposed to go in.
And there's not much grade change on that job in general. Like you have you have some veneering, but not like steps or anything like that too.
No, there's no steps on that job at all. But when you talk about the material, you also want to talk about the color that's being used. You want to talk about the pattern that material is being laid in. You want to talk about the grout color or the mortar color that's going in. So there's all these things to talk about and pick and make sure that everything's correlated and everything's done right. So again, you don't have surprises in this process. One thing as well as we talked about plans that are done. These plans are submitted to the city to get a permit. In conjunction with that, a lot of them are going to require engineering as well. So structures have to be engineered, pools have to be engineered. There's a lot of things that have to be engineered on a project. So those documentations have to be developed after the working drawings are done. Then they're sent to the engineer. The engineer reviews it and stamps off on it. So a lot of times hydraulic systems are stamped off and engineered. So there's a lot of layers to this. It takes time.
Yeah.
Okay. So a lot of times people are like, well, we're going to sell you your pool and hey, we'll be in there a week and dig your pool and be ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
There's no engineering on that job.
No. Unless you have the plans already done by the time you sign and everything like that.
Well, how could you?
You wouldn't.
You would know what they wanted. So
yeah.
So it's just, those are red flags.
Mm-hmm.
To just be concerned about if somebody's going to be able to start your project in a very quick manner is more than likely the documentation hasn't been done in full detail. One thing also that's typically done today is you're going to have a layout meeting with these plans as well, where they're going to go out and paint everything like on the ground and walk through it with
before you dig,
before you start the project.
Yeah.
And the more you can go through in very much detail, that's where a good pool superintendent can take the set of plans and explain to the homeowner what they're looking at. Like, okay, we need to talk about where we're putting the switches in this structure, so we're on the same page of where you're going to turn all your different lights on and how these are set up.
Yeah.
So we're going to put those here, and here's where your plugs are going to go, and here's where your lights are going to go. And so if you walk through those type of details with the client, and the same thing with the pool, here's your pool lights are, here's where your water features go. If that's been very well represented on the ground, then it's easy to understand what's taking place.
Yeah. It's also a good time to change things if you need to, because some people will walk in and be like, oh, this is way different than watching it on 3D.
Right. Now, one comment that almost always comes up
Mm-hmm.
is it's too small.
Oh, yes. The pool.
The pool and the structure.
Yeah.
A lot of times that's the comment. And what's happening is you're looking at something 2-dimensionally, not 3-dimensionally when it's painted on the ground. And so when you dig the hole, all of a sudden it seems much larger. Now it is larger because the ground is the form and the shell of the pool is going to get shot inside of that. So it does come in like a foot on every side of when after they dig the hole. But, as a rule of thumb, everything looks bigger once it's 3-dimensional, not 2-dimensionally.
I agree. Why do we choose transparency even if it makes us appear more expensive up front?
Well, it's always, it depends on which game you want to play.
Okay.
Okay, so there's two games that you want to play. So one is I want to make money.
Yes.
Okay. If you want to make money, you don't need to have clear plans. Okay. If your main thought is I want to make a buck, okay, and I don't care what kind of reputation I have or anything like that. There's a lot of people that's thought process is, well, let's keep it simple at the beginning.
Yeah.
Let's sign a contract and then we'll figure it out as we go. And as we go, we're going to charge you dearly to get things customized the way that you want.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that is very profit driven and they make a lot of money. And so it's funny, the simpler projects are the ones that usually have the highest amount of profit in them. A lot of people don't think that's the case, but those change orders that happen, and that's where the industry gets a black eye, is because people end up saying, wow, I ended up spending, a whole lot more money than I thought I was going to. So there's people that come to me that are like, so what should I leave, like 20% for change orders? And I'm like, wow, no, that's generally not the case unless you just decide to change something.
Yeah.
But my job, so that's one way. Okay. Now, will you get a referral from that person?
No.
Never.
No.
Okay.
Those people might not ever buy a pool again.
Well, and they certainly were not going to buy one from you. But, that philosophy is I'm going to make my money on that one. And there's another person that I can find down the road that I can do the same thing with next time. Okay. Yeah. So that's one philosophy. And usually those are the lower priced companies.
Yes.
And usually what happens is people hope that they're going to have a good experience, but they choose low price and they hope that they're going to get a deal.
Kind of sounds like a scam.
Well, it is to some extent. So the other side of the coin is, I'd rather be open about everything that we're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's bring everything up. Let's be very transparent about everything that's going to take place. And yes, the number is going to be higher initially, but in the long term, you've made all kinds of educated decisions. And then B, there's very little change orders that occur. So, you end up with in my feeling, a better situation. So with that, you may build several pools for somebody.
Oh yeah.
So I've got 2 projects that I'm doing right now that are referrals from, past projects with those same people. So anyway, that's not an uncommon situation. So, the transparency, yes, in some cases people are going to say, well, I can get a better deal over here because they're cheaper. But what I found is most of the time they're not giving you the same thing.
Okay. What are some examples where underbids resulted in important items being left out? I'm sure that's happened to you a couple times with not like your jobs, but when they take your designs and they go to a different company. And maybe because don't you walk some of those jobs sometimes and do photo shoots on them?
So afterwards,
if it's good looking, obviously.
Well,
if they don't mess it up.
So I've gone to a few, not many, projects because there's a couple now and then it's like, I really liked that design and that's what the homeowner said they were going to build. So they held them to it. the place that usually that I see the biggest difference, one is in lighting. Okay. So lighting in the pool and
Structures.
And lighting in structures.
Yeah.
That it's significantly less is done.
Yeah.
And therefore, that's a place that they saved money. And the sad thing is it's not something you can fix.
No.
So,
especially the uplighting in a structure, you can't.
Yeah. So it's just the lighting in the structure is hard to fix, but also the lighting in the pool is really hard to fix. So you can't, I mean, you'd have to core a hole in the pool. And we do this a lot of times on real extensive remodels is we'll come in and add more lights and, or like the one that we photographed earlier this spring, they used one big lens LED light.
Oh yeah, the big old fishbowl looking thing.
Big, I call them cyclops.
Okay.
There was usually one light, but they put one LED light in this swimming pool.
Yeah. Big
size swimming pool. Well, it didn't light it up very well.
No.
I had 4 lights that were going in that pool, which were smaller.
Benches and ledges in there.
Also the light that was the bubbler was an LED bubbler that I proposed, and it was not an LED bubbler that was installed. So, so those are the type of things that a lot of times people don't notice between the two proposals. Most people, when they look at a proposal, they look at the size of the pool, which is funny. And the one thing they look at that always cracks me up the most is they want to talk about the gallons.
Oh, yes.
This is how many gallons this pool is. How many gallons is yours?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if I run a calc on the gallons, it's almost always wrong.
Yeah, because a lot of the time they calculate gallons without putting the seats and the benches and the ledges in there.
It's just something that there's no way a homeowner knows how to check it.
No, yeah, it's a little complicated.
And so, but the crazy thing is that's what they base all their chemical use on later on.
Yeah.
And so you're way over chemical, using too much chemicals in the pool a lot of times because, they think they have a 40,000 gallon pool and their pool's only a 30,000 gallon pool. But that's what they want to compare apples to apples as gallons. And it's like, well, that's the least likely. I mean, perimeter footage and square footage are much more accurate ways to understand what you have versus gallons. Now, it's very easy to figure out gallons. So if you're a homeowner and you want to figure out if your guy's ripping you off on the gallons, I'll just tell you real quick how to figure that out.
Okay.
So you have the area of the pool. You multiply it by the average depth. So if you have a 8 foot plus a 3 foot, so that's 11 foot total depth divided by 2, be 5.5. So 5.5 average depth times the square footage of the pool times 7.5. 7.48 is more accurate, but 7.48 gallons per cubic foot. And that'll give you the gallons in the pool. So now the thing that's always tricky is what's the average depth? Because there's so many tanning ledges in pools today. So, and the average depth on that tanning ledge is 6 inches of water.
Typically, yeah.
So if you're figuring it in the average depth of the pool at 5.5 feet, well, you way overestimated that situation.
Yeah.
So in the 3-dimensional model that we use, we can actually calculate the gallons exactly because it takes out all the benches and the steps and figures it all very precisely. But just even you look at the average depths of the product, that you can get very close to it. The other thing that a lot of times people, when they're measuring, there's a lot of builders that include the spa in those measurements. So when they talk about perimeter footage, they include the spa perimeter footage with the pool perimeter footage. And they say it's all one perimeter footage. No. So you have to understand, well, what's actually in the perimeter footage that you're measuring. Because if I'm saying, it's 98 and I'm just counting the pool, but the spa adds another 20, and the other guy's saying, well, I've got 118 instead of 98. My pool's a lot bigger. Well, it's exactly the same size. He's counting the spa.
Yeah.
So anyway, those are all things you have to look at when you're doing analysis, which is something that we do with our clients to make sure they understand what they're getting and what they're not getting. So on the one job that we photographed, that was the thing that got changed at the last second, is we went from an arbor to a cabana on 2 structures.
Yeah.
And the lighting was much more intensive in the cabanas that I was doing than in the arbors I was doing. Their lights in the cabanas were equivalent to the lights that I had in my arbor.
Oh.
Very small amount. Okay.
Yeah.
Vice versa, which that was a big delta from a cost standpoint. That was one of the biggest ones. So that was something we got to compare because it was switched at the last minute.
Would you recommend a client when they're shopping for a pool to go get a design and go get multiple designs and then fall in love with one and then cross bid a bunch of different companies? Is that beneficial to you to maybe like say, oh, they're going to lower the price even more because I really want to build with Mike Farley and his whole team and who he works with, but man, I want to see if I can get that price lower. And if I bid against other people, then I can show them, this is apples for apples. And we talked about this. It's typically not, but what are your thoughts on that whole process, which is common?
Well, it's not common. It happens.
It happens, yeah.
Okay.
It's not like every time, no.
But, when someone goes through a process, I understand people are trying to find the best value.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of different things to consider. So I have some clients that come back 2 and 3 and 4 times for same company, same projects, everything like that, because their time's not worth going through the whole process with multiple companies.
Mm-hmm.
And they trust the one.
Yeah.
Okay. So that trust is earned.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been earned repeatedly over a period of time. And so, again, that's my feeling has always been, if you do a good job, the long game is you'll be rewarded. So that comes out. Versus there's the person that wants a deal. And I tell people all the time, I may not be the person you work with on your first project, but I'll give you enough information that you'll understand after the first one's done that you want to work with me on the second one.
Yeah.
So, sometimes education's expensive, and some people, that's the only way that they will learn is through self-education.
Mm-hmm.
Other people are like, I'll learn from somebody else's mistake and I'll not make that mistake.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of cases where people are just like, I understand reputation, I understand longevity, and so I'm going to just go with that process because I know that's going to be a better process for me in the long term. The other thing that you have to do in this process is it's a long-term relationship. It's like Scott said last week, you got to like whoever you're working with. So that's something that's important. Along with plans, and speaking about Scott, so one of the things he talked about last week was incorporating the landscape and the outdoor lighting and all these things in the plan concept as well. And the more things that are brought, so some people like all they do is pools. And some people do pools and outdoor living structures and kitchens. And some people do pool and outdoor living structures and kitchen and lighting. And some people do and landscaping. And some people do and stereo. And some people do and furniture. So if you have somebody that has the capabilities to do all those things in your plans, then you're going to end up with a more cohesive, complete product. So something to think about when you start talking to them about what their capabilities are to do. So in this whole process, the idea is to create what's best for you, what's best to do in your backyard. And the more you can have a comprehensive set of drawings, and you can have a more complete set of specifications to complete this package, then you can be assured you're going to be in a much better place at the end of the project than if you went with someone that had a lower price but had less specifications and less plans. So 2024 was an exciting time. We had a lot of fun in different episodes to consider. So I was just curious if there was a certain person you thought it was fun talking with.
There was a bunch of people that, especially like designers that are well established, like yourself. That it was cool to like get nuggets of information that just will stick with me. A lot of the brands, the different products was really cool too. Like the floors that went up and down.
Under floor.
Yeah, knowing the more details about slides, more details about climbing walls and pools, whether that be there's a lot of the activity stuff I like a lot, because these are different features that I get to learn more about, that I've seen, or like the inner kid in me just wants to know more about it. So eventually one day, I can design something like that.
Trying to figure out how to put that flow rider in.
Oh yeah. The flow rider was the fourth one I was thinking of. I was like, there's one that's like crazier than all those. That flow rider, man.
The river flow pump for a lazy river is pretty cool too.
Yeah, there's a lot, man. There's a lot. And then the different concepts that we covered, there's a lot that I loved.
Okay.
What about you?
Well, it was, there was a lot of fun ones that we did.
Mm-hmm.
So, the funny thing is, it was one of the most awkward interviews. Was I talked Danny Wang to coming on to the podcast.
Oh yeah.
And so me and Danny are friends, and
Mm-hmm.
Danny's one of the judges for me in the $1 Million Pool Challenge. And we've known each other for a number of years. And that was the day that Laura broke her finger.
Oh yeah.
It was in having surgery, and the surgery was supposed to take 2 hours, and she ended up in surgery for hours and then in the hospital afterwards. And so we were trying to work out me calling in remotely and couldn't make that happen. And Kevin didn't know Danny at all.
Oh no.
And so he had to interview Danny. And that was a challenging one, which it was, I looked forward to that a lot, and interviewing him, because I know it's always interesting to me to hear the backstory with everybody on how they got here.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them were amazing how they got here. I mean, Leah Fredericks was one of the iconic women that we interviewed back at the early in the year, and how she got to where she was really a bizarre process. And, it was funny talking last week with Scott Cohen, how similar the two of our stories were. I mean, down to us both selling Christmas trees and a nursery. And we did the math. It was we probably did it the same exact year the first time.
Mm-hmm.
He was in high school and I was in college. But that was pretty bizarre. But it's just, it's interesting. And like you said, to talk to some of the people and some of the processes that they have, which are, I mean, there's really good information for both homeowners and designers in the pool industry, and outdoor living industry, and outdoor kitchen industry to check out. That there's a lot of good information there. I would have loved to have had all that information when I started out.
Yeah,
but it's always interesting to talk. So one of the things that people have asked me about is this podcast is really about luxury outdoor living. Okay. So, I mean, we're talking about some concepts that are way out. I mean, a wave runner. I mean, I know there's not probably 10 in residential backyards. Okay, there's probably more than 10, but there's not a lot of them that are going on. There's one being installed right now. It's pretty cool. I'm following on Instagram. Anyway, but
there's a lot of niche items that we cover that are kind of out there. But
what's funny is some of these things, which were way out there 10 years ago, are quite commonplace today.
Yeah.
And so what we're trying to do is give people information on what's available. If you're really looking for a luxury outdoor living space, and it's not just about swimming pools. And so one of the things that we looked at this year on what the popular episodes were and what people really thought that was cool is, so we're going to do more stuff on outdoor living. So, and try to cover some different niches in that. Also just to talk to more designers in different parts of the country, or outside of the country. One of our first ones for the year is in Canada. Anyway, it's just, it's been a lot of fun, and, it's been a lot of good information. And, we had a tremendous loss with the loss of Kevin.
Yes.
And, we, look forward to continuing the legacy he created, with me, and, and serving more people, which was the thought process behind both of what we were trying to create. And we just appreciate everything he helped us in getting started. And but we want to try to grow and do better. And so we appreciate your thoughts, and let us know the things that you're thinking about, the things that would make a better, or you're just not sure how that happened, or like Scott Cohen said, no one just explains anything. So, hopefully we can try to explain things and make it easier for things to be created, and things that work well, and things that help create great spaces, great memories, great food, great times, all that in your backyard. Or you can do it in your front yard too. It's just a lot of cities won't allow certain things in the front yard. So that's why we say what we say. But thank you for all the time you've spent on here as well.
Oh, no problem. It's been a pleasure. It's honestly a blessing to learn so much from you and all the different guests we've had. It's a perspective that I don't take for granted. It's really cool.
Yeah. Well, young people are the ones that are going to be leading the industry here very soon. So we encourage all of them, and we want your input as well on how to do a better job. So, well, thank you all for 2024.
Yeah.
And look forward to 2025. And we'll talk to y'all later.
Have a good year.